What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ash. And we're here to recap, week 10 of the NFL season? How is it already week 10? This is starting to break my brain a little bit, but another great week of football. We're going to talk about some of the major games. I mean, there were a lot of good moments. Christian McCaffrey made his return to the NFL field this week, which was crazy because he made his return to practice. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. And then by Thursday, it was like, yeah, he's probably going to be good to go. So that was very good news. And he had a pretty good game. Lions, Texans was a good one. Ravens, Bengals earlier in the week. We're going to talk about it all. But before we get into it, Matt, Theo, beautiful Sunday night we're having. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Not much to report besides just a good slate of football. The entire first window seemed to kind of come down to the wire. And then the primetime games have all been good. Thursday night, Sunday night, and I think Monday night tomorrow with Miami versus LA is going to be crazy as well.
Excited for that.
The 4 o'clock window, it's been cool, bro. And also the 9 a.m. window has not been too bad. Got a little overtime game in the morning, and the good guys came out on top.
When that game went to overtime, I was actually upset. I was fearing that it was going to bleed into the 11 o'clock, at least in my time zone.
Yeah.
I was so sure that neither team was going to be able to move the ball into the red zone at all. But Tyrone Tracy got me, I guess, dropping the ball like that, getting it over with, so I had time to react to it on TikTok and
there you go.
Watch the 11 without interruption. So shout out. I know he was sad.
If you miss the first 5 minutes of a game, it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. I just wanted to
catch you up to speed button.
It's just that I got to make a video about it. So if it gets done 5 minutes into the 11 o'clock window and then I spend 20 minutes like thinking of what to say, then all of a sudden I've missed 25 minutes of the opening window. But luckily, Tyrone Tracy dropped the ball. And I know he was choked up over it. He was emotional.
Yeah, that sucked.
You convenienced my workday, and he wasn't thinking about this. He needs to look at the silver lining.
You convenienced Theo Ash NFL. Doesn't get much better than that, honestly.
No.
I love conveniencing Theo Ash NFL. But Matt, let's talk about this 9 a.m. window. Your Panthers have won 2 games in a row. Bryce Young starting to look quite good. It looks like
starting to look better.
It looks like his time on the bench has served him well. How are you feeling? Let's just point blank.
I mean, I'm feeling good because the Panthers are winning, and I don't really care about having like the first overall pick in this draft.
Yeah.
Bryce has looked better. His throws down the sideline have been super, super accurate. Even the one that he missed today I thought was good, and Coker just kind of got hung up. But, if we could catch all of these, I think his numbers would end up looking really good. On top of that, it seems like his ability to hang in the pocket, albeit the offensive line has been playing awesome, looks better. And there's times where he's trying to make something happen where he just looks much more capable, even if he is smaller, even if he isn't like Lamar Jackson fast or Cam Newton strong or whatever. So that's good. And there's some throws over the middle of the field that were there that we weren't seeing before. This is a lot of baseline stuff, I'm not going to lie to you. And a lot of, not to be negative, I'm sure if you're a Panthers fan listening to this, it's annoying, but I do think that the expectations for this Panthers team and Bryce being rock bottom maybe make it feel like this is a crazier performance than it was. But Theo, you texted in the group chat something that I really agree with. Said it's good enough to prevent the Panthers from drafting a quarterback when there isn't one there in this draft. And I'll take that, is how I'll put that. I'll absolutely take that. And I'm interested to see how Bryce continues to develop for the rest of the year and into next year if he keeps playing like this. I don't know if he's ever going to become a top 5 guy because of physical limitations, and he's got a long way to go, but he's better now, and if he continues to improve, who knows what can happen. So that was my main takeaway. Also, the Panthers' offensive line really is fantastic, even with guys missing. They were phenomenal today. Hubbard, fantastic game. I cannot believe he did not tear his ACL on
Seriously.
that play where he went down. And I was just like, well, of course he's going to tear his ACL the game after we sign him to a big contract. And like, he's the Panthers locker room guy. They love him there. He represents everything a Panther. But no, he did that, and then he came back in next possession and was good. So I'm excited about that.
I'm really shocked
has been
by how much negativity surrounded the Hubbard extension. He's been playing.
It's fantasy stuff. People are mad about Brooks. I think it's dynasty, guys. I really do. And then on top of that, it's like the Panthers. So you're just going to be mad. Like, you sign a running back and it's Carolina, and Hubbard isn't like a big time name. I don't think it's like a crazy, like beautiful value signing, but like, I get it. You're gonna make that move if you're Carolina. I will say about the receivers. Yeah, I will say about the receivers. Coker was good, and Leggett is winning, but he has probably the worst hands of any receiver in the NFL. Right? I mean, it's really bad. I don't know if that's something like that. I mean, every single catch is a struggle for him. Not even just looking at his drops, but a lot of his catches. Like, he had something where he was coming across the middle and he had to like body catch, and it's like he was wide open. It just didn't, and it was like a 10-yard pass. It just didn't make any sense. I don't know what his drop number sits at right now, but it's weird for somebody who we thought the ball skills would be one of his pluses. It's actually like his biggest negative. Not to say that I'm out on him. I still like how much he's just winning against man coverage and that type of stuff, and doing a good job getting off the line early as a rookie. But it's definitely frustrating, especially when the receiving core is already pretty thin.
It does feel like his skill set from college has almost flipped, because you're right, Matt, the ball skills was the one thing we were like, oh my God, he catches everything. But he wasn't getting a lot of separation, and now it looks like, he's winning a lot in his routes, but it's like he can't finish it all of a sudden, which is kind of, I guess, optimistic that, he's developing in the route savingness and winning before the catch. But I don't know, like, how along the way he lost the great, like, contested catch stuff from college.
Yes, it's just something to watch with him. Outside of that, though, I just thought it was a nice Panthers win, and we're headed to the bye, and then I think we're hosting Kansas City, and it would be incredibly sweet if Kansas City could beat Buffalo and then turn around and lose to Carolina. Now, they're going to be like 10-point dogs in that game, but it would be sick.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my thoughts on the game from a Panthers perspective.
It'll be an interesting game for the Stay Hot Locks for sure.
I thought this game, the big story for me was just how many throws Daniel Jones missed, especially in the first half.
Right.
They got blanked by the Panthers defense after the first half. It was 10-0. He had a red zone pick. He had a moment where Malik Neighbors ran a sluggo and then settled down and had a ton of separation. I think number 98 for the Panthers was getting his shit kicked in on a stunt. So there was an entire side of the line of scrimmage that was wide open for Daniel Jones to step into. Just how do you miss it? It is wide open. There's no pressure whatsoever. The flea flicker was instantly famous. 3rd and 1, they pitch it back to Daniel Jones. The announcers are like, oh, that was way too cute. And then you like see down the field and it's like, oh, wait, it totally worked. Everybody was fooled and Daniel Jones just didn't throw it for whatever reason. Just bizarre. Kurt Warner shouted out a couple more times that I didn't really see a replay for, but he was like, oh, I thought Daniel Jones had this. I thought he had this. He mentioned Theo Johnson being open on an over off the screen that I didn't see. So just that he was sabotaging the Giants for an entire half. And he played a lot better in the second, I feel like. And he got him, down the field to kick the game-winning field goal. So he kind of salvaged it, but like, how are you so inconsistent against the Carolina Panthers defense? Evan Neal made his return to the starting lineup and was dominant. I mean, he won, not only won, just dominated blocks all day. I don't know if he'll out any pressures. I'm expecting the PFF grade to drop like in the high 80s. That's just the kind of thing that happens when you play the Panthers defense. What's bad becomes good. You can't really trust it. Caleb Williams, right, looks like the future against the Panthers, and then that part of the schedule ends and he's getting his shit kicked in, right? So to struggle against that defense is really indicative of something very wrong, and you don't get any bonus points for, pulling it together at the end and then losing. So,
well,
I mean, it's something we don't already know about the Giants.
Daniel Jones has been getting bonus points for like pulling together bits and pieces of good football for 6 years, right? Mm-hmm. I joined at halftime a Spaces of Giants fans hosted by, we know as Light, many might know him better as AP Football. And it was just so funny to hear Giants fans just completely lose it. I mean, they were so upset. And at one point I chimed in. I was like, do you guys need a hug? And someone said, I need a better quarterback, damn it.
I thought we were seeing Drew Lock in the second half, but I guess not. I guess not.
That was the debate that was going on in this. It was like, should we put in Drew Lock? And I'm like, honestly, probably. I don't know how much better it would be, but I could not possibly stand watching Daniel Jones continue to play football. I couldn't imagine watching Daniel Jones for 6 years as a Giants fan. That's insane to me.
No, it's not good. It's not good, and they're just waiting for it to be over. They're getting another high draft pick. Hopefully this is the one that replaces Daniel Jones. But as my comments section pointed out today, we've gotten a lot of high draft picks every year, and it's not seeming to matter for the Giants. As far as the Panthers go, obviously the story is Bryce Young. I saw a lot of like Hope Core Bryce Young edits on TikTok after the game of him like smiling and looking happy.
He's got such an infectious smile, dude.
He does have an infectious smile. He does. He had one of the cutest little games of the year. I was a little bit worried that it was kind of mid, and I was worried that is kind of the ceiling of Bryce Young in this game, right? Like there was a little bit of magic there for sure. Like the scramble, I think he ripped off like a 20-yard scramble. He had one in the red zone where he stepped up and threw a touchdown to Sanders. I don't know what the defense was doing there.
Wide open. Somebody just like let him get behind them and then just stayed up.
Simmons passed him off to the safety, and the safety went to go like triple team somebody, and then Isaiah Simmons stopped moving. I mean, if Simmons was in a bad spot there, where if he stuck with Sanders, Bryce would have just ran it in no problem. Instead, he kind of broke off of it and got eyes on the quarterback, and then the safety wasn't there, is what it looked like to me. So, yeah, it was a fine game, but at the same time, like, there were a couple moments where some of the flaws of Bryce Young still showed through. He booted into Brian Burns a couple times and wasn't really able to have a lot of success there. He took a sack on one. He actually slipped him on another, but then, like, the clock in his head was like totally ringing. The alarm bells were off, even though he evaded the blitz. He just like forced a pass right then and there. And it's like that. You need to calm down there. You made the guy miss. You got to get your feet set and actually make a throw there. He had, I thought that throw to Coker was bad. Burns had pressure. He beat the left tackle across his face, but still, like, shift to the left or something.
Kind of got caught up as he turned up field. I thought that it was like, I guess a little bit of a tough grab. Miss. It was a little bit of a grab, and then it wasn't like some like 5-yard miss or like way out of bounds where you're like, okay, well that sucked no matter what. It was like maybe a foot or two away from Coker's reach, and it was launched as Coker was getting grabbed. I'm not saying it's the greatest throw in the world, and like any of these down the sideline throws are not really like the highest level of stuff you want to see from Bryce. You know, like I'll admit, like there's a lot of quarterbacks that could be accurate down the sideline. But I didn't think that was a bad throw.
Yeah, maybe it was just an average, you just say. Maybe he was held a little bit. But there was another throw, I guess, while we're giving Bryce the not his fault treatment. There was another play where Dexter Lawrence was using the center like a blocking sled, and he threw this over route to Coker with interior pressure. And the throw was kind of low, but Coker could have come up with it. But I thought that was kind of a nice throw from Bryce under pressure. He had a fine game. Like, they put some drives together. He had some nice moments, but also like so many 3-and-outs at the same time. And I guess I'll have to go back and watch all the film and get it straight in my head how much of that was Bryce's fault. Because now I'm thinking about like the drop to Chuba Hubbard that Chuba Hubbard had in the flat that stopped the clock before the 2-minute warning at the end of the game and kind of allowed the Giants to put that drive together. So maybe it was a better game than the stats indicate, but I don't know.
It was, and they had a big play called back or a touchdown called back. It's slipping my mind, but he was, or Leggett had a drop. Like there was a few things there where if they got completed, it's like the stat line looks a lot better. It didn't look great in the end, but I'm not buying into the box score here. Not to say that he had a wild game. I will say this though. Okay. Hubbard is great, and the offensive line is great, and I love these young receivers, and Bryce had a good game. It's like, well, they put up 17 points against the Giants. So what was not good? That's the question I would ask Panthers fans if they're maybe looking at everybody individually and giving them the green check mark, but then the overall result isn't that good. That's sort of my thoughts. It's like we're sort of still judging everybody on we were looking like we could be the worst team ever like 2 weeks ago. Scale. So it's a good win though. I'm pumped about it, and they will beat the Chiefs.
I feel like one of the things that I thought was really bad from the Panthers in this game, just based on my recall, every time they threw it like behind the line of scrimmage, it got like comically stuffed. I think that easy kind of throw to the flat was just not there for them. Like the incompletion, the fumble to Hubbard where he almost tore his ACL. Just in general, I thought, it was either
they're very
run.
Static with that stuff. They're so static when they run that stuff. I was watching the Cardinals today. The Cardinals, like, I don't think they had like the craziest day running the ball or anything, but they're so forceful getting downhill. And then when they want to do the short, like little like dump off stuff, they are always like faking you out on one thing and then bringing it back around to like a delayed screen or whatever. And it just creates so much more misdirection and stops teams from getting downhill. The Panthers have a great run game. The Panthers ran for like 5.5 yards a carry today, and they've been running well all year. Hubbard ranks super highly in rushing yards and yards per attempt. I feel like they should be using more of that. But the entire time that Bryce has been a Panther, it's always been like the short, quick game is super stagnant. I mean, last year it was screens to Thielen, and this year they have kind of the same problem.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats now. They were way more efficient on throws beyond 10 yards than in front of 10 yards. They were huge negatives across the board, just on little checkdowns and stuff. They could use another thing about Leggett that we really liked about him coming out of college that we just haven't really seen. The yak threat of him, like hit him on a drag and turn up field, and he picks up like 20 or something like that. Again, he had a beautiful corner route that Bryce hit like at the end of the game under some pressure. Beautiful. Like he's been such a good route runner this year.
It's so frustrating, but his hands are like, I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. It's not a hot take. They have got to be the worst of any receiver in the NFL. It is
I know this is a my team versus your team here, but I'm willing to put up Dontavion Wicks in this conversation, but he did have a drop.
I mean, but part of the problem is like, it's okay. Leggett, it's not that Leggett isn't a great athlete. He's winning when the ball isn't in his hands, but he had one today where it was like a drag, and then he has to like come way into great, like he's fading toward, or he's like going to the ball and has to like sort of For audio listeners, I'm clutching the ball carefully. So it's just super frustrating, and it's something that I think can get better, but it's something that has to get better, or it's not going to be cute like halfway through next year.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the game that happened chronologically before the London game, which is the Thursday night game. I don't want to bury the lead on that too much because it was fire.
Oh,
Joe Burrow versus Lamar Jackson. Blaiden, they're in your division.
They are. Unfortunately, man.
Do you think the Bengals are poised to make a run after watching this game? Like, we know the Ravens are good.
Right.
What is your take on the Bengals these days, or just the game overall?
I think they can make a run. I mean, I think it's clear that I think they're very similar to the Ravens in a lot of ways, really explosive offense, obviously in different capacities, because with the Bengals, it's, kind of that Burrow Chase Buddy ball as opposed to the Lamar Derrick Henry. You have to stop both of those guys running, and then what Lamar, of course, can do with his arm. The Bengals defense is just so bad. Their defense is like, if anything is going to stop them from getting to the playoffs, it's going to be this defense. And even if they get there, they play a Houston, they play a Buffalo, they play Baltimore again. I really don't know who they can stop right now. I don't even know if they could stop Pittsburgh. I mean, this is the thing about, and we'll talk about this game also. We talk about, well, Pittsburgh hasn't played anyone in the AFC North yet. They haven't played a single divisional game. I don't know if Cincinnati's going to be able to stop Pittsburgh the way their offense has looked. So I look at their remaining schedule, and it's Chargers, Steelers, Cowboys, Titans, Browns, Broncos, Steelers. The only offenses in there that I really think that they're going to be fine against is Dallas, because they don't have Dak Prescott, the Titans, and the Broncos. The Browns is completely hit or miss. It depends on what kind of Jameis game you get. He could be the worst game ever, could be the best game ever. But every other game, it could come down to the wire, and they're going to need Burrow to play damn near perfect. And that's the one thing that concerns me, is they're already behind the 8-ball on this, and they need Burrow to play perfect the entire rest of the year, and they need the defense to not put up a complete stinker every single week. They've got some guys who are playing good football. Trey Hendrickson, of course. I think does he still lead the league in sacks after this week? I'm not entirely sure on that.
He's up there one way or another.
Right, yeah, he's up there for sure. I gotta see more Jordan Battle in the game, man. It is still him. Jordan Battle has to play more, I think, but outside of, the rest of the defense has just been really, really bad.
This game just had featured such crazy athleticism mismatches on both sides. For the Ravens, it's no one can touch Jamar Chase. There's nobody in the secondary that
then when Kyle Hamilton got hurt, it was just
right. And then, but for the Bengals, it's none of their pass rushers can touch Lamar Jackson, and if they do, it's hilarious, the broken tackle rate that he has against them. I mean, he was just floating in the creases of their pass rush plans. Just they did their best to try to force him a certain direction. Then he'd go there and just beat the guy who is there. And it's well, what do you even do at that point? I guess what you do is you drop back Burrow 56 times and just go beat him that way.
That's the plan, right? I mean, Lamar's the only quarterback in football where I feel like he can turn his back and run 20 yards backwards away from the defense, and be right. I mean, Bo Nix did that today, and it was a complete disaster. So, yeah. Matt, what were you going to say?
Oh, well, I didn't have anything else to say specifically on that line of thinking. We got an ambulance going on outside of my apartment. But I mean, I feel kind of bad for the Bengals. They're 1-5 on one-score games this year, and that includes a 1-point loss to the Chiefs, a 3-point loss to the Ravens, a 1-point loss to the Ravens, a 5-point loss to Washington. They have played some great teams and played them close and been super competitive, and the coin has just not flipped their way to some extent. But 4-6 in the NFL is 4-6, and even though I think their schedule is more favorable going down the line, they're gonna have to go on like a really serious run. Like they'd probably have to finish out the year 6-1, maybe split with the Steelers. Like if they don't win this Chargers game, it's undefeated or nothing. Their offense is certainly good enough, and I think they're a team that you would be really sick if you were the 2 seed that you had to see the Bengals round 1 because they had like a bunch of fluky losses and their defense isn't very good, but you're getting Burrow instantly over, you know, I'm not going to name any names, but some teams that maybe don't have a super serious quarterback. But ultimately, for the rest of the year, their defense stinks. Their secondary stinks, dude. And it's like you talk about the Steelers. It's like, I don't necessarily trust the Steelers' offense 1,000% against anybody, but could I see Pickens and Mike Williams?
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Winning some deep balls down the sideline.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Could I see a team running hard against the Bengals? Like, yeah, dude. So I don't know. I think they're a better team than their record is, but I think they're running out of time to make up for their current record. And I don't think they have 6 losses for no reason.
Yeah. Matt, you mentioned they're what did you say? 1-4 in 1-score game?
1-5.
1-5 in 1-score games. They also have not beat a team with a winning record so far this year. Their wins are against the Panthers, the Browns, the Giants, and the Raiders.
Yeah, that's a good point. They have played some of the best teams in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Washington has been unstoppable. They've played the Ravens twice. The Chiefs are obviously undefeated, and they lost that game by 1 point.
And then they got slaughtered by Philly.
They did get slaughtered by Philly. That was a bad game. It's tough to take a team that just has this big of a flaw in Week 10 incredibly seriously when you're talking about a stacked AFC Championship game. If they were to go on a run, it'd be completely different from all the other ones that they've ever had.
It would be. It's like if they went on a run and they're leaning on Burrow as much as they have been and as much as they're going to have to, like he would be in MVP talks for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, their defense is just so bad, and I just don't know if they can overcome it.
What about the Ravens though? They have a terrible defense.
They have a terrible defense.
Do you think that's a fatal flaw?
I don't know if it's fatal because I don't know. It's weird. Their offense I think has more that they can access a little bit because of the run game.
They can at least run, yeah.
And it's not just like one guy. They have a 1-2 punch run game with Lamar and Derrick Henry, and that's terrifying. And so the way they can control time of possession is different. Like the whole way they can control games is different. Also, I think the Ravens have more guys on defense. So, like even though the defense is bad, I feel like there's a higher probability of the Ravens defense making like one play if it needed to.
I agree. I could see the Ravens defense tightening up a little bit more in a way that I can't with the Bengals, but It's not a bad point, Theo. The Ravens defense has performed incredibly poorly this year. And when we're talking about a playoff run, or with the Ravens, when we're talking about winning the Super Bowl, because anything less isn't cool at all for them. Yeah, dude, like it definitely does make me worried about Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. The nice thing about Baltimore over Cincinnati is like Cincinnati is 30th in havoc rate this year. That's sacks, PBUs, tackles for loss, interceptions, like big plays by the defense. The Bengals just have not found those this year at all. They're down with the Falcons, who have no pass rush, and the Panthers, who have no pass rush. They're the only teams below them. At least Baltimore is 15th in this category. Like you say, Blaiden, like Roquan Smith is not having his greatest year, I'd say. No. But at least you have him, and he's capable of reading some things out and making a big time play in a big moment. And then Trenton Simpson next to him has created a lot of havoc. I feel like he's been very nice in coverage and created a lot of PBUs, I think, in that area. And then, of course, Kyle Hamilton, send him on a blitz and he'll tip any pass that happens, right? He'll get in the throwing lane. Or Marlon Humphrey, as bad as the secondary has been. I shouldn't say that the Ravens have nobody who can hang with Chase. Like Humphreys has been playing at a pretty good level this year. It's just that everybody else outside of him, not really there. Our Darius Washington, I think, has had some decent performances. It just comes down to, I think, the lack of a pass rush for them as well. They just, when they rush forward, it just takes way too long. Matabike had 3 sacks versus the Bengals. Like, he can win one-on-ones, but from the edge, no one really comes. And just in general, I think they kind of sub people in and out along that defensive line. And just sometimes they have lineups out there with like Urban and Pierce and like Van Noy and, Owe. And it's like, who is really getting a bucket here in a pass rush situation? Like, these guys are useful in certain areas, but not always in the pass rush area. So with the Ravens have their problems, definitely the explosive plays that teams keep rattling off against them, mostly because like Marcus Williams is bad. Like, the fact that he looks so washed this year has been a massive issue. But they've also ranked highly in some other areas. Havoc rate, they're middle of the pack, but creating negative plays, they're second.
I think it's funny.
In total,
both of the Ravens safeties from last year look horrible. Geno Stone and Marcus Williams. Like, what?
Yeah, there
is the odds that both of them are bad this year.
Yeah, I don't know. But my point is, they're very boom or bust, unlike the Bengals, which are just kind of bust all the time in mid. Like, the Ravens create good stuff. They also just give up a lot of explosive stuff, and it results in this terrible passing attack, or this terrible pass defense, but actually pretty good rush defense. So they're not as cooked as Baltimore or as Cincinnati. And like you said, Blaiden, the Bengals have no run game, and that was another thing that stood out on Thursday night. And the Ravens have the best run game and 2 Hall of Fame runners in the backfield in Lamar and Henry. So
it makes a difference. And the Ravens receivers have kind of been balling a little bit this year. And I imagine part of it is because you have to account for the 2 Hall of Fame runners in the backfield. But like, Bateman's been having a really solid year. Zay Flowers has obviously been, very explosive for them. Andrews had a good game. And they added Deontay Johnson. He obviously wasn't like super impactful in that game, but it's like their offense. I was looking at like previous Super Bowl winners, and I'm like, there are a handful of teams that have been able to get it done with like mediocre to bad defenses on the year. And all of those teams, with the exception of the 2012 Ravens, which are just like an anomaly in their own right. And I think it's like them and the 2011 Giants. There was one of the Giants teams was like kind of weird. But every other team that's like has like a bad defense usually has the best offense in football. And it's by a wide, like there's the 06 Colts, I think, with Manning, and then there's a couple others. I don't have the spreadsheet up in front of me, but like, that's what the Ravens need to be, and they have been so far. So if they can maintain that level of play into the playoffs, they're going to have a chance. Yeah.
I would also say another thing I think that I enjoyed about this game is they didn't completely abandon the run like they did in the playoffs last year. Like, remember that Chiefs game? They didn't run it with their backs hardly at all. Like, they fell behind in this game.
Well, they didn't have Derrick Henry.
Exactly. I thought that they ran it enough with their backs in this game. They had 18 rushes, nothing too crazy, certainly, but the fact that, it was still somewhat of a threat, I thought was somewhat important.
Oh,
Right.
one more thing. Tylan Wallace breakout game in 2024 was not on my bingo card. I looked back. We were talking about Tylan Wallace in like March of 2021, we're like, hey, this guy's kind of nice. And Matt was like, do you guys have anyone for my dynasty fantasy draft for any sleepers? And Theo was like, Tylan Wallace, and had a good Senior Bowl.
I mean, he had that ridiculous kick return last year, that punt return that won him a game. This was kind of similar. Like, don't get him in a straight line running up the sideline, I guess. But that was another one where I thought kind of the lack of athleticism on the Bengals defense kind of showed through. It's like, how do you not catch up to him and like shove him out of bounds? He's literally a millimeter away.
I think
they thought he went out of bounds.
Yes.
It was on your boy, Geno Stone, actually, Blaiden.
Was that on
Could
Stone?
have been there.
No.
I believe he was on the sideline. There was several guys who could have made a play and didn't.
Done it.
But that was one of those ones where it's like not the Bengals' year, not a strong showing from a weak secondary.
As long as it wasn't on Jordan Battle.
I honestly don't remember. I just remember seeing Stone, I think, being the last guy there who missed. Do we want to move on to the next game?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to stay in the AFC North, we can finish it off and talk about the Steelers-Commanders. Another really good game. And all season we've been talking about, like, are the Commanders frauds? Are the Steelers frauds? This was the game to prove who's really the frauds. And I think I kind of came out of it feeling like neither of them are. In some aspects. I thought Jaden Daniels, despite what the box score says, I thought he played a fantastic game. The Steelers defense made a point to not let him really scramble and beat them with his legs. And they shut down the run game basically entirely. Austin Eckler had some decent runs, but for the most part, absolutely like no run game for the Commanders. And Jaden Daniels made a lot of plays where he was, Lamar Jackson-esque breaking out of the contain, breaking away from sacks and making some ridiculous throws that for either got called back for a penalty or got dropped, hit a guy in the chest, something would happen. I thought Jaden Daniels played a fantastic game, but their receivers outside of Terry, I think show is like clearly not having as much juice to get things done. It's like Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey and Ertz. And like, so those guys are cool, but when we're talking about like needing to make plays against this Steelers defense, you're going to need a little bit more than that, it feels like.
The Steelers definitely played just a big boy type of game, I feel like. Yeah. I love that you mentioned the scrambles, Blaiden. Jaden had 0 scrambles today. First time all year that's happened. Finally, a team is able to contain him.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. They blitzed a lot. With the Commanders, you have to worry about extra blockers in the scheme, whether it be chip help from the wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. If you blitz them, though, it messes with the spacing downfield because you don't have a high-low opportunity on the wide receivers. If a tight end is in to block, right, you can just bracket the guys downfield, and I thought the Steelers did a pretty good job blitzing and then pressing the guys on the outside and just not giving Daniels any lanes to escape through, making the wide receivers fight through press, and overwhelming some of the offensive linemen with one-on-ones. Like versus the Giants, I thought they could have blitzed more and not let Dexter Lawrence get triple teamed last week when the extra blocker helps out on Azeez Ojulari, right? And they get quickly 6 hands on Dexter Lawrence. That did not happen today, and Hayward wrecked the game. There were a bunch of tipped passes at the line of scrimmage. Just good contain, good pressure the whole day. I thought the front kicked ass, and then over the middle of the field, Minka, like I don't know how many times Jaden Daniels tried to throw some route about 10 yards downfield to somebody sitting down in a zone coverage. And by the time the ball gets there, they're like getting their head taken off by 2 guys. I mean, Zach Ertz on the last play of the game, it was kind of that situation where they stopped him and in short. I did not envy the ref in that moment. I'll say that. I was glad I was cozy on my couch watching the game
instead of making. That's a tough call to make, man.
I did not know how that one was going to get ruled, but It was just one of many examples. There was one Tampa 2 rep that they had where the linebacker bailed out, obviously, in his Tampa role. And there was usually in that scenario, there's this huge gap in the middle of the field where he bails out of. So Jaden throws it to some guy settling down in that zone. And somehow like Minka Fitzpatrick flew in and killed him. I'm like, where did he come from? Shouldn't he be on like the boundary if that's the coverage I think it is? So I'm excited to see the all 22 there, but they were just flying to the ball over the middle. They did a good job containing with their rushes, and they gave up some stuff down the sideline. Like Terry McLaurin made some big plays out on the boundary against the corners, but overall they did just enough to win by 1 point. And then, Matt, I don't know if you want to watch this one. I want to talk about the Steelers' offense, but I was very impressed with the defense, even though they allowed 27. I mean, one of those was off a fake punt.
I was impressed with the defense too. I mean, but yeah, I mean, if we want to move on to the offense, it's interesting with the Steelers because it feels like a lot of their success just comes from like, fuck it, George Pickens down there somewhere.
It does feel like that.
And Russell Wilson threw an interception trying to hit one of those. And honestly, I thought the game was going to be over after that pick because I thought there were a few times where Washington had the opportunity to kind of really pull away. Like coming out of halftime, they scored, made it 24-14. And then they went like 3 straight possessions and didn't do anything. And then they kicked a field goal and then they got the interception and it was 27-21. And then here's that interception. This is the real testament to the Steelers defense, actually. Last thing on the Steelers defense. They got an interception. Jeremy Chin picks it off, returns it past midfield. The Commanders go 3 and out and punt. That is crazy. 3 and out and punt when you get a pick return past mid. They didn't get a field goal out of it. Nothing. Just absolutely insane. But yeah, I thought the Steelers offense had moments of looking pretty good. Their special teams was awesome today.
As usual.
Like it always, as usual, man. It's just like Mike Williams had a touchdown. Pratt Freiermuth had a touchdown. George Pickens had a touchdown. I think for all the hate that we gave, I mean, I don't think we gave them a lot of hate, but for all the hate that the Steelers got for benching Justin Fields, I think it's fair to say they probably made the right call. Russell Wilson has been pretty good pretty great. The touchdown to Pat Freiermuth could not have been placed any better. I don't know if you were like super remembering how that went down, where he just got really great separation on just like a speed out. But if that ball is behind him on his inside shoulder, it's probably an interception because the DB closed on that very quickly. And he just puts it right on his outside and he's able to turn up and get a touchdown there. I'm trying to. There was another play.
It was a screen. Van Jefferson screened him. Really, just a little rubber out. And
oh yeah, no,
it was pretty open.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely like. Do you ever wonder if like the NFL is ever gonna like stop that from happening? Like,
there's no way, like on a route like that, someone just runs a hitch. It was perfectly done because Jefferson.
But he's like clearly not looking for the ball.
He is looking for the ball. He's just running a hitch. I mean, he's got
standing there though, man. He's just.
That's what a hitch does, though. Like the hitch messes with the spacing. It's like a screen in basketball. You know, like you're not.
To me,
every sport has this.
It looked intentional to me, though.
Obviously, it's intent. Like obviously, he's intentionally trying to screen them. But there's no way to ban, like, and if he doesn't get hands on it, there's no way to ban just running a hitch. If he does it in front of the guy, I mean, it's on the Commanders to pass it off, right? It's not, that's why coverages like top hat exist. And there's lots of different calls that you can make when you face a stack to say like, hey, if he goes in, I'll get him. If he goes out, you got him, right? Instead of, you know,
I did that
being
in
straight up man on man. So that's what the Commanders needed.
A stack, and I said, "Hey, if he comes vertical, I got him. You stay on the shallow there." I do think some of the Commanders players had good defensive performances. Fowler got to Russell Wilson twice.
Oh, yeah.
Frankie Louvu is awesome. Like almost every single week. Man, I couldn't imagine like a team letting him go. That would be crazy.
How much money is on Deshaun Watson's contract? Right?
Yeah, man. It's always coming. And then obviously Jeremy Chin had the interception, and I thought he played a pretty good game outside of that too. But yeah, and this is the Commanders kind of have a similar problem that a lot of, like we talk about the Bengals and we talk about like Baltimore, like their defense just isn't that good. And it's the one thing that I think is going to keep coming back to bite them a little bit.
Well, they didn't have Lattimore.
They've got some good players. Yeah, that's right. They just traded for Lattimore, and like once he gets into the swing of things, it'll probably get a little bit better. They had, who was the one? Theo, you tweeted about this play. They have a corner that was playing
Sanders still
on. Yes. Oh my God, that play he had on the left sideline, absolutely beautiful coverage.
Dude, he had a play earlier too where he came down as the run force and set the edge, and he like blew up Calvin Austin to such a ridiculous degree. It looked like he had some sort of force emitter in his gloves. Like he touched Calvin Austin coming downhill, and Calvin Austin like flew backwards back into Najee like a commodore.
150 pounds soaking wet.
So is Sandra still though. Like Sandra still. I thought from the beginning of the game to the end, he was making plays, and he was a nickel demon at Michigan, and he's playing out on the outside. And it hasn't always been great for him this year, but man, this game it really was a special performance from him.
So the Commanders have some good players on defense. Daron Payne had a couple of nice plays as well.
They win the physical battles, I feel like, the Commanders' defense. All year, they've tackled well. They can drive you back. They don't have the strongest bodies out on the perimeter, and that showed today, definitely, but they're getting Marshawn Lattimore into the fold. Like,
yep.
I like the Commanders a lot. I think I like both of these teams a lot, honestly. I don't think that they need to be talked about as like frauds that were waiting to fail because of their offensive problems or whatever. Like, Russ is not the greatest quarterback ever, certainly, fine, that's true, but he has been balling so far this year, and it's like last year and the year before that, like Pittsburgh has rolled into the playoffs with Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett or something like that. Like the upgrading quarterback that has happened this season has been underrated. Like our mindset has been like, oh, they didn't have an answer before and they still don't have an answer, but really long term. But the improvement that has been made in that area has been ridiculous. And the offensive line has gotten better as well from where it was a few years ago. I like where they're at right now, Pittsburgh. I wish that they weren't so run heavy on like second and long situations. Like their run game wasn't.
On third and long, they've got Pickens.
I guess so. They are crazy good on third and long, but I do wish that there was a little bit less Arthur Smithness to the offense sometimes. But like they're dangerous with this defense in this division. It's the thing that sets them apart. And
how far do you think they can go?
I think they could go to the AFC Championship game. I think they could. I don't think that's what I'm predicting, but think about them versus the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs have been in one-score games all year. Like, you don't think it would be a dogfight between the Steelers and the Chiefs if they played in the playoffs? Like, I seriously think it would be. And it's like, how do we feel about them versus Baltimore? Like, they have so much success versus Baltimore year in and year out. Like, I don't know who I would pick to win that game. I think it's pretty even. So those are your two.
They play next
But what
week.
about them and the Texans, right? There's your other contender. Mm-hmm. I really think the Steelers are poised to go on a run. Like, maybe they get their shit kicked. Maybe they lose all those games. Like, it's very possible, but I think they're dangerous.
They're definitely dangerous. They play Baltimore next week, so we'll see how that matchup goes. I mean, that's going to be a heck of a game. Or maybe Pittsburgh gets their teeth kicked in. Maybe they have no answers for Lamar and Derrick Henry, but I mean, they had answers for Jaden Daniels today, and no one's had answers for them all year. So if they can do that and limit the run game against, one of the premier offenses and really limit them altogether, I don't see why they can't do the same thing to Baltimore, who probably has, they definitely have a worse number one receiver. But although, their offense is obviously structured very differently. But all that being said, do you want to move on to 49ers, Buccaneers? This was another bout. Got to see the Christian McCaffrey return. Matt, I know this was a game that you were pretty focused on. Baker Mayfield, is he the GOAT?
No. Honestly, this was a pretty, I don't know. This was a pretty, I don't know what the word for it is. Baker very much showed like the problems we know that Baker had, and Purdy did some things where it's like that's specifically what we've been saying Purdy has been doing. Baker, with some of the pocket management, has just been like really wonky. And in this game, it was the case as well. I think, Theo, you even tweeted out about it, or maybe you made a video about it. I don't remember. About him like spinning around for, nothing and then missing a throw. And like, don't get me wrong. A lot of the problem is that the Buccaneers receivers are like totally depleted. Like he went from having really good receivers to having really bad receivers. But I thought like the number one thing that stuck out to me was how Baker managed the pocket and how everything got a little bit off kilter because of that. And then with Purdy, there were some moments where it's like, okay, having McCaffrey back in there makes things a little bit quicker. It's like, all right, there's some guy in man coverage against him whose number is in the 90s. Yeah, I think you're going to be able to like probably get it in the quick game to McCaffrey pretty easily. But then there's a lot of other times where Purdy holds it and holds it and holds it and holds it. And it was just good enough to win. And I should say, like, if the 49ers just kick their field goals and make them, they win 32-20, and we don't need to be negative about their offense at all. I think they have enough guys who can go out there and win still on the perimeter for them to be a threat. I don't think they're just completely cooked without Ayuk. It sucks, but Pearsall had a good game. Jennings is like not looking like a Linsanity run so far. Kittle had a fantastic game. He really is a lot like Kraft. He really is. I mean, obviously he's better, but like, dude,
vice versa.
Yeah.
Kittle,
but he had a run today. He had a run today where he got like 15 extra yards that he had no business getting, and then he had. He's not only a dude who can do that. There's a lot of tight ends who can be big and physical, and if you can get the ball in their hands, like they can run down the field. But then he has like, a corner route toe tap touchdown on top of that. Like, and then you bring McCaffrey back, and he's a matchup problem, even if it isn't like on the perimeter down the field. I think they still got enough ammo there to go out and be competitive. And an NFC where it's like, the Lions I think are really great, obviously, but I think outside of that, it's competitive, and even they have their problems, clearly, which we'll get to a little bit later. I also want to say that Deebo Samuel talking shit to Jake Moody after he missed the third field goal killed me. I felt bad. That would suck to be a kicker who was missing kicks like that, dude. That would suck so bad, man.
You got one job.
Yeah, you do have one job. That's true, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't suck ass to go.
No, that's why it would suck. It's like I've got one job and I like can't do it right now. It's like
even if you made me as talented as Aubrey or whoever, I would probably be out of the league in 1 year because I would miss like an extra point off of fluke, and then I'd let that fester pretty badly.
We're gonna give you the kicking talent of Messi, of Ronaldo, and we're gonna throw you.
I'd probably play soccer then.
We're making you play NFL kicker though. That's what we're doing.
I don't know how that would translate. It'd probably translate pretty good.
It usually.
I'll have to focus on.
Sorry,
Matt.
No, you go ahead.
I thought It was interesting how McCaffrey returned to the lineup and instantly all the yak was back for San Francisco. Like, I don't know what it had been looking like recently, but I know in like week 5 or 6 of the season, San Francisco was the worst yak team in the entire league. And maybe it got a little bit better from there, but they were still near the bottom coming into this game. The total opposite of what you'd expect from them. McCaffrey comes back, all of a sudden, the dig to Pearsall opens up and he takes it up the field. Debo had some nice yak plays. Kittle had that double catch where Purdy beat the blitz and Kittle managed to snag it. Like all of a sudden, everything just kind of locks back into place. And I really think it's because McCaffrey drags safeties down to guard him, and I think that has a lot to do with it. You can't play so much quarters.
Absolutely it. Because there were plays where the Buccaneers weren't ready for it, and they didn't have somebody, like I said, I forget who it was, but it was somebody in the 90s. And like you can see that, I can see that on the TV. I was like, well, McCaffrey's gonna be open, and he was, and he whatever he wants to do, he's gonna win. So
and then the choice routes underneath are so money, right? Like it's just the easy button to press, and I think it helps Purdy get the ball out faster. He's not quite holding it as long in this game as he was previously, just because it's so much easier to just dump it off to the running back. And McCaffrey broke some tackles in that way. Obviously, he hit that wheel route for 30 yards at the sideline. Like it really opened everything up. And I thought Purdy was sharp, especially in the second half. I thought his accuracy was a little bit all over the place in the first, but I thought in the second he was pretty much dialed in, and they should have won this one much more comfortably than they did because of muffs and missed field goals.
Yeah, and this is... go ahead, Theo.
No, you go ahead. I'm done.
You're such a nice guy, man. One of the things with the personnel with having McCaffrey back is you just have to, I think about the personnel you have to bring out on defense, right? Because you already have to deal with like the receivers, which are like you mentioned, Matt, still a pretty good group of guys with Jennings and Pearsall. But then you have McCaffrey and you have Kittle. And McCaffrey and Kittle require two very different guys to guard. Like you basically need, and what the 49ers have both of those guys is the problem. It's like you need Fred Warner to guard Kittle and you need Hufanga to guard McCaffrey. So what are you supposed to do? It's like you have to run some like you have to live a nickel at the very least, so that you have a guy there for McCaffrey, and so that you're not like taking your one last linebacker out in like putting him on, like telling him like you have to match Kittle all game. It's just a very tough world to live in because a lot of guys just don't have that many bodies to be able to say like, we're gonna, like if the Browns played, it'd be like, oh, JOK's healthy, you have to match with Kittle. Delpit, you have to match with McCaffrey, or vice versa. Those are our only good open field tacklers. Like you take those guys out of positions to make tackles in the open field on other people, it would become a mess. So like that would be the thing going forward. Like the 49ers sit here at 5-4. I know we talk about them as like they're probably still a tier 1 team. They are definitely still a tier 1 team. Like this team would really scare me to face in the playoffs, just because I don't know like how many teams can match up against them.
Yeah, I think I agree. Do we want to get to tonight's game?
I do.
We're going to skip Patriots Bears then.
I do have something to say about yeah. Well, let's get to the night game and then.
Okay, we'll see how much time we have after that. That's fair. Lions Texans. The interception game.
It was the interception game.
Garrett Goff has returned.
Returned triumphant. I mean, they won this game. It was the first time since 1970 that a team that had 5 turnovers and ever trailed by 15 had won a game. It's been a long time since 1970. What's that? 54 years. So
54 years.
Pretty historic stuff on display tonight from the Lions, getting this win, coming back from being down. How did they do it, Matt?
Wait, how did they come back from being down?
Yes.
Well, I thought they did a good job with some like easy screens and stuff, and they got Gibbs out on one, and Laporta had a big play. I mean, honestly, it just didn't take much because they kept getting opportunities because the Texans' defense was atrocious. That was the biggest part to me, honestly. I mean, they were down 10 with maybe 20 minutes to play, and the Texans really gave them, I don't know how many shots at scoring, 5 since that. And even though I think overall the run game for the Lions was like not good today, and obviously through the air it was pretty rough, it only takes a couple to break off to make up a comeback like that. And when you give a team that many dice rolls at it, like they're going to get it. What did the Texans rush for today? I don't have it pulled up in front of me. It has to be atrociously bad.
On the ground.
I mean, it was
28 carries, 56 yards.
That's right.
Just like, and I mean, I don't know how many like Stroud scrambles that includes, but I'm.
It includes an 11-yard draw to. I can't pronounce. His last name. Mixon was 25 for 46 yards. That's a 1.8 yards per rush
like
average.
And of course he ran 25 times because he's got to. Yeah. And then of course the offensive line was pretty bad for the Texans again, and Stroud had some bad plays under pressure. I think the graphic that I saw in the middle of the game and from what I watched, like when he wasn't getting pressured, he was pretty good. But the Texans offense right now is just going to always struggle to stay on pace and to stay on the field when it's really easy, no matter how good Stroud is, to force them into bad plays because you can get pressure on them all the time, and they have no way of staying on pace on down because they cannot run the ball. They had a horrific running performance today. Yep. Their big threat of Diggs and Collins, which is, I think, what, even if the offensive line was bad and the run game was bad, what makes them such a difficult matchup wasn't there today. Where's Diggs? He's out. Where's Collins? Still out. So what is the threat of this team on offense? Nothing. They scored 23 points. They got 5 interceptions. That has got to be, I mean, Carson tweeted out that the last time that this happened was 2012. I'd love to know what's the lowest point total a team has had with 5 interceptions, because this has got to be among it. And when everyone was like, I'm confident that the Lions are going to win this, because you saw that on Twitter. Like, they were down 10 and everyone's like, Lions are going to end up winning this. It's because they knew the Texans weren't going to be able to move the ball whatsoever. And they knew that they were going to have a bunch of opportunities at it.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of bad Stroud interceptions. The one that really was bad was he had a wide open crosser, and if he had thrown it like earlier or just like more decisively instead of just kind of lollipopping it in there, it probably wouldn't have been a touchdown. I don't know what that is going on, but it probably would have been a touchdown there. But it ends up being an interception because Davis has all the time in the world to come over and get in front of the pass. So, I mean, it's just kind of plays like that kept him in this game. I mean, we're looking at it now. It's 26-23. They score that touchdown. I mean, is that game? Like, is that it? Is it over? I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, I mean, you just can't let a team throw 5 interceptions and come back and beat you.
Dude, the Slowick, it's the same story every week. They've got to lead the league in sequences where it's 1st and 10, they run. It becomes 2nd and 8, specifically 2nd and 8, and they run it and they get 1 yard and it's 3rd and 7. Like
obvious
that
passing down time. Texans offensive line, you got us. Yeah, dude, it's bleak. I mean, I'm looking at their drives. Second half, okay, 1 play interception, 3 plays, 1 yard punt. 5 plays, 40 yards, interception. 6 plays, 6 yards, punt. 3 plays, 1 yard, punt. 4 plays, 4 yards, punt. Missed field goal. That was their second half. Not good enough.
Yeah, they didn't score.
Now I think, and here's the thing is, like, I think the Lions defense is better than it was last year. They're missing Aiden Hutchinson. Their cornerback play really hasn't been that great. This is not a defense that you should just get completely shut down against, even if there's aspects of it that I like. I think they'll be better when they get Collins back, but with Diggs, out for the entire year, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
If with Diggs out for the entire year, I've got a question if Collins alone, no matter how good we think he is going to be able to come in and save this team from what they are right now. Because he's not fixing the run game. He's not changing the fact that on 2nd and 9, you're running. I absolutely promise you, throwing away EPA or throwing away value or throwing away opportunity to make something happen with your best players like that, not getting you a win against the demon evil Chiefs who have everything break their way. So I like it's not going to beat, Buffalo. It's not going to beat, a lot of these top teams if you can't turn things around, at least not consecutively in the playoffs.
Yeah, Houston is a team that I am not bought into at all right now. Like you said, Matt, it came out of halftime and immediately I have the gut feeling. I'm like, they're going to lose this game. I'm like, they are absolutely going to find a way to throw away a game where Goff is having 4 interceptions, then ends up having 5. You're right. I don't think they're better than Pittsburgh right now. Not even
maybe not.
I will say I do like their defense a lot. The nice thing about the Texans is they got 5 picks, and then they lead the league in havoc plays by a lot. And they did tonight without Will Anderson, and they did it without Nico Collins. So if they do win the AFC South, which they should, and they get into the playoffs with 2 of their stars back, I'm not completely out on them by any stretch.
No, I wouldn't say that I'm out on them either. I do think that their run game and their play calling, which are especially the play calling, fixable problem. But it's incredibly, incredibly frustrating. My question for you, though, Theo, what do you think the Lions did differently to come back? Because to me, it was just a matter of time before they were going to break off a couple of plays and put up the 10 points that they needed, and the Texans were just incapable of taking any time off of the clock. But was there something specifically you thought that they changed? They got it done, or was it just a couple of big plays? Because that's how I felt.
I thought that they started going to Sewell, honestly, and it builds the Sewell offensive player of the year case that I kind of mentioned the other day. It's is this guy one of the best offensive weapons in football? And I know that he gave up a sack tonight to Danico Autry. But in the second half, it just felt how many cool slow motion clips did we get of him out in space, clearing out a bunch of people and Gibbs running behind him? They got to that over and over and over again. And then Jameson Williams made some tough catches. He had that one where he, didn't high point the ball, but he stuck his arms out in front of his face and met it at the first available window and got crunched. He had that kind of double catch as well. So some tough catches from him. They started to work Amon-Ra back into it just kind of slowly but surely. They didn't force anything to him necessarily. But yeah, I thought it had a lot to do with just hey, we've got this beast right tackle. Let's just run behind him and get back on track. We can't throw any picks if we run behind him. So let's do that. So I thought that was kind of the main thing that was there in the second half that wasn't in the first, outside of just Goff throwing an ungodly amount of picks in the first half.
Just got to remind us.
How did it go? Did it go 3 in the first half, 2 in the second for him?
Yes.
Okay.
Just reminding us that the Rams' Jared Goff is still in there somewhere.
And of course, the defense locked in the second half. That's the main thing. They got their turnovers in the second half, and Stroud is just not that accurate. I don't even know what to say about these picks. He had open guys on both of them. Just the classic. You can't throw a speed out behind somebody. I legitimately think
he just got too comfortable. I think he was just oh yeah, easy throw, wide open, and then just pick.
And I thought in general, he was there were some plays where he was flirting with throwing a pick as well, and didn't throw it away when he was in trouble. Obviously, there was that sack? Do you guys see the sack where his own lineman ripped it out of his hands? Like, what is going on there?
Dude, oh my God. Like, what was
that?
What the hell was he doing?
No
He
way.
thought,
It genuinely was one of the most like...
he saw Stroud tied up, and then he was like, I'll just take this and run. But it's like, bro, what are you doing? You're not him like that.
That was
Thought he was gonna save the day.
I don't. Titus Howard.
When was that?
That was in the second
like
half, definitely. That was in the late third.
I thought it was like
early fourth.
late in the second half, honestly. That was one of the more bizarre plays of the day. I've never seen an offensive lineman be like, game on the line.
Character moment.
That's gonna be in a TikTok edit. Like, give me that ass.
It's Titus Howard time. Titus Howard. It happened with 9 minutes left in the fourth. 9 minutes and 15 seconds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, very crucial. They were protecting a 3-point lead. I mean, it was 3rd and 10, and Stroud was like, getting sacked. So I can kind of understand the mentality of like, no, I can't understand the mentality. I mean, I get what he was trying to do, but I don't understand the dumb mentality there of trying to strip your own quarterback of the ball. But
That's awesome. He was going to take it and score a touchdown.
It's really Stroud's fault for not letting him do it. He really stripped him. That's crazy. But yeah, I thought just in general it was kind of a sloppy second half from Stroud. Like the line protected better than it had versus the Jets, right? But there's just still some kind of lame moments, and I thought the quickness and the rhythm was all gone in the second half as well. But the other thing I want to say about this game, like Brian Branch seriously needs more defensive player.
Oh my God,
consideration.
He is unbelievable, man. He's about as good as you could be.
I looked it up. He's got a 4.5 havoc rate, and the next best safety is at 3. So he's kind of close to being double the next safety. Like he's a major outlier when it comes to just impacting the football as a safety. And if he was that much of an outlier as an edge rusher, this race would be over, right? If you're in the top right-hand corner of the edge rusher havoc rate chart by yourself, you win the award, or even defensive tackle. He is just as much of an outlier at his position as like Micah Parsons is at his position, or Myles Garrett, or like Chris Jones, or Aaron Donald. He even has the picks this year. I mean, he's done it all this season. Like he's not leading the league in picks like Xavier McKinney is doing.
Yeah, but he needs to.
That's the thing.
That's the path. Is like he needs to have like 9 interceptions or something. I don't know. I think it could be done because people like Branch. And is there an edge right now where it's like, obviously they're the number one? Kind of no. I don't know what the statistics say. Watt's always up there.
6.5 sacks this year. So like Watt has definitely come through in some huge moments and has like won games for the Steelers by himself. And they're 6-2 at this point, or 7-2. So I'd get giving it to Watt. He's probably the favorite right now, but with his sack numbers, and I don't think I've seen that pass rush win rate chart all damn year. So I don't know what the issue is there, but I don't know. I think it's definitely Watt's award to lose right now, but it's not like he has the eye popping numbers where like if he ends with, I don't know, 10 sacks instead of 20.
Yeah.
Is he guaranteed to win it over like a safety who has, I don't know. It's well known that this is the most effective safety duo in football this year. So I could see Branch getting some love at the end. He definitely deserves all the love possible. I'm fine with whoever wins it at this point. I don't think it's become clear yet, but Branch is right in the thick of it.
Branch is a freak. I also thought Jack Campbell kind of had a good game today, which pleasant surprise. Because I was not a big fan of him when the Lions drafted him, and I thought his rookie year for a first round pick was kind of disappointing. But he had a good game tonight, and I haven't been paying super close attention to him the rest of the year. But it sounds like from Lions fans that he's been playing pretty well all year, especially in coverage.
Yeah, they cooked at that draft, man. Gibbs and Campbell, no one could understand it. I couldn't understand it at the time. Why would you do it? And they just, the power of love and friendship, man. Fuck that team. They just, I don't know, man. They just made it work by just.
Well, I mean, if the players that you pick are good, then it will work out. Even if Brian Branch is like a safety, even if he is a nickel guy, it's okay if
the
he
Branch
actually
pick I always understood. Branch
That's
was always
true. We were always pro Branch.
We were.
But he went in the second round, man, even though he was obviously not outside of the top 32 best players in a draft class.
He did have like a terrible combine, I remember, where it's like, oh, he's a 6 foot.
So did Kyle Hamilton.
I'm done with it. And so did Bucky Irving. I'm done with RAS this year. It's all film from here on out.
All film from here on out.
Here's the thing. It's like, I don't doubt that RAS, like when the RAS dude is like 90% of NFL players are like a 5 or higher out of 10 overall in their score. I don't doubt that. However, like when you watched Bucky Irving, it's like, okay, well, clearly this guy is like overachieving. And then you combine like what you can see on the film with the fact that in the back of your head, how many of these guys are just not doing events that would hurt their RAS score. And it's actually like there's plenty of guys, if they had to run all the events, would finish way lower. Then, yeah, I agree. Every year we say, don't take the combine too seriously. And every time we fall for it. Next year, I'll be the guy like tweeting out or like being somebody like, I don't care at all.
Next year, it's going to be Jalen Milroe. That's going to be the guy to light everyone's eyes.
He really is fast as hell. So it's okay.
Dude, he's like that. He's so fast.
When Dante Corleone runs a 4.8, we will be still in on.
I need Jalen Milroe to run the 40 so bad. I need it.
But I bet you he will.
You better.
Did you guys have anything about the Bears-Patriots game? I did not catch that one.
So I did watch this one. It was an extremely ugly watch for the Bears offense. Caleb Williams took 9 sacks. That's the most in a game this year.
Let's go. Let's go. We beat it.
The last 2 games in weeks 9 and 10. I looked at where it ranked in the 2020s in terms of like worst week 9 and 10 stretches in this decade so far. It's at the very bottom. It's up there with the Tommy DeVito Giants last year is what this looks like right now. It's up there with the Urban Meyer Jaguars is what it looks like at this point. It's up there with a lot of fired coaches or soon to be fired coaches. I feel like the main problem in this one is just when you watch Caleb under pressure, I think every single pressure was accompanied by press coverage from the defensive backs. And the fact that they can blitz, own the interior line, and the wide receivers just have quit, it feels like, and the wide receivers need to be your engine when you get press. Like, the onus is on them to beat it, really. So the fact that they just cannot do that, and the line cannot protect, it just makes it so the answer against the Bears is extremely easy. Just do that, and you can win. Christian Gonzalez had a ridiculous game today. It just did not allow an inch of breathing room on anybody.
He's so good.
And then with Caleb, we'll have to check the all-22. I mean, 9 sacks. I know that they're in press, and the wide receivers disappear off screen, and he's like looking around and just taking a sack. So it's like, who knows what he's seeing down there? I thought versus the Cardinals, he was kind of vindicated on tape because guys were legitimately just like quitting and in the wrong spot. I'm guessing on this one, Caleb will not be as vindicated. I think this was a rougher performance from him. He just would run into pressure a few times. Like he stands in the pocket, he sticks around, he's scanning the field. He's just not throwing the ball. Like, I get there might not be anything down there, but you would rather give your wide receivers a chance to make a play than bail directly into a defensive lineman and take a sack. And that happened far too many times today, where it's just like he just doesn't look elusive. I mean, he was pressured probably off the top of my head, I want to say like 15 times overall and took 9 sacks. So you did the math on what our precious pressure to sack rate is there.
Not good.
Just terrible.
How much of the onus do you think goes on Shane Waldron? Because you talk about there's all the times that the receivers got pressed and maybe gave up on the play. How much of that goes on the play calling to say, hey, we're going to do something to mitigate this press coverage. We're going to do something to get guys in motion. We're going to get guys from a slot position maybe, or, maybe you go in a stack and you have to force them to line up a little bit differently.
Probably a lot. But again, we'll have to check the all 22 again with other games going on at the same time. The nitty gritty details of the game plan do kind of get lost on me. I did right off the bat. I can tell you there was a lot of maybe 4 verticals, maybe a little bit too much 4 verticals in this game. And I definitely think that the rate of motion and stacks and rubs and things you're talking about, Blaiden, were not at the level they needed to be at. But like, I think it's more than just Waldron. I think like they're going to fire Waldron probably and promote who, it's
right. It's like, is it going to get better? Probably not, but.
And it just feels like it's such a culture thing as well. Like, it just feels like nobody's bought in. Like, it started with Tyreek Stevenson showboating in the middle of a play. And then the next week, DJ Moore hops off the field and just sits on the bench while Caleb is running for his life. Yeah. And then, where is the will and want to? And I feel like that comes from the head coach and not just Waldron. So I think that Eberflus is lame as well. And I think his system of defense has always been good, not great. Like his entire time in Indianapolis, the Bears defense was better in those years. All right. And then he comes to Chicago. The Bears defense isn't better than what it was the previous 3 years before he was hired. And it's just the same as what the Indianapolis Colts defense has been since he left. So I'm trying to like peruse through the numbers and like figure out what edge he's giving the Bears. And it's not really shining through in any of the defensive numbers. It's coming through in the turnovers, but there are other places where they're giving it up. So I don't think he's really done anything to the defense compared to where they were before. He's not an offensive head coach, so obviously he's not really helping there. And culture-wise, he seems bad. Using his challenges, he seems bad. I just think that they need to gut so much of the front office. I think Ryan Poles, again, like, I think I'm vindicated that he's not that good of a GM. And I think just in general, I think Caleb can turn it around just like the Urban Meyer Jags kind of did, but they just do not have the guys in the front office right now. They're in a death spiral right now that you just don't come back from.
Yeah,
so
I mean, they're not perfect as far as like you mentioned, the interior of the offensive line, complete disaster. They're not perfect in team construction by any means, but the quickest path to at least righting the ship is, I think, getting rid of Waldron and Eberflus. So that'll be our rant on Chicago. Theo, what were your thoughts on Drake May's wacky interception today?
He said that he was trying to throw it out of bounds. I was like, that's worse.
What?
Just tell me you're trying to force it.
What?
He said he was trying to throw it away and just didn't. I don't know.
I was trying to give him the benefit of it looked like he was trying to look a guy off because there was the defender underneath. I thought he was trying to like get him to like come back inside because he looked this way for half a second and then came back and threw it. And I tweeted that out and people are like, look, he can do that, but you got to check your work. You got to make sure you're right. But apparently he wasn't even trying to do that. So
I thought May played a decent game. I was watching more for Caleb, but May had a crazy throw on a bender with Jalen Johnson trailing it pretty closely. And it was just an absolute beautiful throw. He looked like Tom Brady standing in the pocket and just ripped that thing probably 30 yards downfield over the middle in tight coverage. He also had outbreaker probably 20 yards down the field to Austin Hooper that was beautiful. He tried to get it to KJ Osborne while running out of bounds, but Osborne stepped out and came back in. So there were plenty of good moments with May, but that pick was bad. And then there were a couple of times where I was like, okay, his accuracy is still just... Sometimes it's obvious how he's not maximizing the window that he has with his accuracy. It's like, oh, the wide receiver had to completely slow down and stop and catch it behind him, or this just wasn't in the right spot. So the accuracy was like a C. The decision making was like a C, but it's not an F, you know? And I think that he's playing within the construct of the system, and I think that he's made some high-end throws, and he's been putting points on the board. Like,
he has.
In terms of where he ranks in rookie quarterbacks right now, I think he's right there on pace to be, one of, if not the best of the class still. I mean, Jaden's ahead of him certainly in the pecking order right now, but he's right on schedule to me. You got to keep in mind as well, like Jaden is 24 or 25, yes, and May is 22 or whatever.
May is the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that needs to be said. And like, it's him and Richardson for like the two most inexperienced quarterbacks in football, right? Or like starting cal. I mean, there's like Lance also, but like, obviously he's not going to get like another chance, but like, yeah. So for May to be looking as good as he is, again, this was the same conversation we had with Richardson. The best argument against Richardson is Drake May. And the fact that Drake May looks as good as he does with as little experience and as young as he is really, really, really good for what he can be. So, yeah, I think that's it. So,
yeah, that's all I got.
Cool. So we'll talk about some of the other games, some of the other teams that we missed on our Wednesday record, Thursday release. Maybe we'll talk about some college football. I know the college football playoff rankings are out, so maybe we'll discuss that.
It's glorious. It's glorious who's getting left in.
Oh, man.
No, I saw one today. I saw Mizzou's head coach was like, "We're still in it," and everybody was like, "No, you're not. No, yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're still in if they win. I don't think they're gonna make it. They're ranked 24. They only got 2 losses. If they won out, there's absolutely a path. That's the world we live in, baby.
I mean, it's like
that's what everybody wanted.
Top 25 is probably still in it.
Hey, Miami just lost to Georgia Tech. No biggie. I'm loving these expanded playoffs, man.
Oh man.
Oh, and we're getting to around the point where, like, especially in a 12-team playoff, you really need to start taking into account strength of schedule. In a 4-team, you can kind of just go win-loss, and it's like everybody needs to control their own destiny. In 12-team, you need strength of schedule to matter because you've got these like Big Ten teams that played one ranked game and don't win it, and they're gonna be like sitting, I mean, Indiana's ranked 5.
I was about to say Indiana's one of those teams.
Penn State's ranked above them. And they've already lost their one ranked game they're going to play this year. So, but the problem is that if you take strength of schedule into account more, guess who gets in?
Arizona State.
Not Arizona State, believe it or not, after their, like, dude, if they hadn't lost to Cincinnati, they would be like,
they just got a 5%
really
chance, unfortunately.
5%? So you're saying?
There is a chance.
It'd be letting in SEC teams, evil SEC teams, so there will be no winning with that whatsoever. And I'm excited for it. I won't lie.
It's gonna be funny. Not just sitting here like, you guys wanted this.
I do think it's a little ridiculous. Like I think we're gonna have a lot of people complain about the. You know what? I won't even make a point until we actually see it or anything. I've held off, but I do feel vindicated on a few things, like Miami's Georgia Tech loss really not being treated as that big of a deal. Exactly what I was talking about.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you cooked.
But anyway,
you absolutely cooked on that. But that might be a conversation that we have more in depth on Wednesday's on Wednesday's record, Thursday's release. But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. Shout out Theo and I for getting another win in the Stay Hot locks. Matt, you might have to stop picking against the Panthers here very soon. But luckily they're on a bye, so you can't do it this week. So you'll get back on the board, I'm sure. And until next time, we will catch you on the flippity flop.